Hey, and welcome back to another video in my discussions playlist, the playlist of videos where I discuss various topics related to technology. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about the downfall of LG's phone business, LG smartphones and LG phones in general. So let's get to it. So LG, once a top competitor in the phone and smartphone market, known for making phones such as the LG Prada, which was the first capacitive touchscreen phone, numerous successful flip phones, the first dual-core smartphone, the LG Optimus 2X, a very successful 3D phone, the LG Optimus 3D, and many more phones. However, over time, the world saw a decline in LG's popularity to a point where they are no longer even in the top 5 anymore. And in this video, we'll be discussing why LG's popularity declined. So before that, don't forget to hit that like button and check out my channel, and if you like what you see, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, go ahead and click that bell notification button so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. I'm also on Instagram and Discord, and the links to those can be found in the description below. Alright, let's jump right to it. So I'll skip the history of LG to keep the video as short as possible, so let's get to the point. It was 2014, which was the year where LG was enjoying a year of record-breaking sales, but this would be the last year as LG as a top competitor, and the last year they will go without being criticized as a company. In April of 2015, LG released the LG G4, the well-known LG G4, the flagship smartphone of that year, and the successor to the very popular LG G3. Initially, customers loved the device, praising its selection of back covers, vivid display, great camera, and good battery performance. But in a few months, a lot of LGs started to overheat and crash, and eventually never turn on. They would just keep boot looping or just never turn on in general. This was the start of the infamous LG boot loop. So when looked into in more detail, this issue was being caused by loose connections between components, as LG put it when they publicly acknowledged the issue in January of 2016. The main two components causing this were identified as the eMMC chip, which was the flash memory and flash memory controller chip, as well as the main CPU. LG offered replacements for these boot looping devices under warranty, but again, these replacements also showed the same issues, which tend to obviously led to many customers being frustrated. So eventually, many fixes to these issues were proposed by many people here on YouTube, and articles, websites where technicians would give out solutions for these issues when they looked into them themselves. These ranged from reflowing the solder joints on the two chips, reballing the entire chip, or preventative measures such as installing copper plates on the chips to dissipate the heat better. Most of these fixes, however, didn't work for everyone or were just too complicated for the average person to perform, where they'll have to actually rely on a repair shop or someone else to perform these repairs, and not everyone would want their brand new phone taken apart just to perform such a repair or preventative measure. So, apart from all the controversy surrounding the LG G4, sadly, this was not the end of LG's problems, as in September of 2015, Google's latest Nexus devices were launched, with the higher end being the Nexus 6P by Huawei, and the cheaper being the Nexus 5X by LG. And a few months later, reports started circulating that the Nexus 5X was also starting to boot loop or stop working, just as the LG G4 did. This time around, even the Nexus 6P by Huawei also started boot looping, but this was later found out to be a software issue and was completely an unrelated incident. So when people eventually started taking apart their Nexus 5Xs, it was found to have an identical hardware design to the LG G4, and the eMMC chip and CPU chip were again loosening from their solder joints on the board and causing the phone to boot loop. LG again started offering replacements to these faulty devices, and over again, the issues still kept on persisting in the replacement devices as well. So reports also started coming in that another two LG devices, which were the LG V10 and V20, that the reports were saying that they were also suffering from this issue, though they were not as widespread as the LG G4's issue and the Nexus 5X's issue. The 5X's issue was found to be far worse than that of the G4, where some phones were rendered completely useless once they turned off and they wouldn't turn back on. The LG G4, there were a bit more fixes than the Nexus 5X. The G4, people had a bit more success fixing the G4 than the 5X, but these fixes were usually never permanent either. But it was found that the 5X had far worse issues than the G4. And from my personal experience on trying to fix these, I can tell you that reflowing or reballing the solder joints on these does not always work, as seen with these two phones that I have here, which have been sitting in plastic bags as projects for later ever since I got them. Another G4 that my father used lasted for about 3 years until failing of the same issue. However, since he didn't use the phone that much, it was probably the reason for it lasting as long as it did. This somewhat coincided with LG's statement that the issue may arise depending on quote-unquote usage behavior, as LG put it, but obviously only a minority of their user base would barely ever use their premium flagship phone that they paid for, and daily using phones that were daily used would almost always boot loop. So in March of 2017, a lawsuit was filed against LG in the state of California stating unjust enrichment, unfair trade practices, and of course warranty violations. They stated that LG continued to sell G4 and V10 phones even after acknowledging that they were defective and didn't recall them. They also didn't provide any help for customers with boot looping phones which were out of the 1-year warranty period. The lawsuit also expanded to cover the G5, the Nexus 5X, and the LG V20 as well. In January of 2018, finally an agreement was made and LG had to pay the participants of the lawsuit towards purchasing a new phone or $425 in cash. However, not everyone received this compensation, as the lawsuit was not a class action one and it was more on an arbitrary basis. Finally, all this combined was what struck the final nail in the coffin for LG's smartphone business, and most of their customer base switched to purchasing devices from their competitors such as Samsung, Huawei, Motorola, etc. etc. As of 2020, LG has sorted out and fixed all their boot looping issues, but they're no longer relevant due to a lack of interest and of course a lack of trust after the events of 2015 to 2018. Barely anyone speaks of LG flagship phones anymore, only a few popular YouTubers cover them in reviews and unboxings, and people in general aren't willing to pay for them considering how good the competition has also become. So, as a personal opinion, I'd like to say that it's highly unlikely that LG will ever make a comeback, but if they were to, they'll have to make a phone that everyone will want to buy, and they'll also have to spend a lot of money on advertising and promoting it. It just goes to show that how a few bad products could destroy the reputation of a once loved brand. I personally think that LG should have recalled all their flawed devices, refunded all their customers, and taken the time to re-engineer them and release better devices the following year without any issues. The best example of this is Samsung, which they did with their Note 7's exploding issue. Samsung handled the situation very well. They recalled all Note 7 devices and released the impressive Note 8 the following year, which was free from any issues, after spending that gap year researching on better batteries and how to avoid a disaster like the Note 7. So Samsung handled their Note 7 dilemma really well. So finally, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button and check out my channel, and if you like what you see, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next one.